the service of light. The light that we shine is of deeds done in darkness, or if not in darkness, under the neon of the prison system of our state, the official slave system of Tennessee government, which has in its constitution two provisions: one prohibiting chattel personal slavery, forbidding you from owning another person outright, and the one just after it allowing the creation of state slavery, which is to say imprisonment for crimes for which the party has been duly convicted. And the light that we shed is a bit stronger than neon. It's not quite as strong as the unhealthy LED lights that we find more and more in the retail sector and even in some homes, but just regular light bulb. I'd say 100 watts. Okay, 100-watt light bulb of natural filament light streaming down onto the bald head of an inmate, and that inmate is named Grenda Harmer, a name, as I like to suggest, sounds like a Faulkner novel, or maybe someone from a low character in a Flannery O'Connor story, with one of those biblical names. And he has, as we have reported at Nooganomics.com, and also here on the David Tulis Show, he has some good news, and the good news is that he has been liberated from a neighbor. The neighbor that apparently was put next to him as a threat. He is a man who he is a correspondent of mine, meaning he writes to me. Okay, that's what a correspondent is. So I have two correspondents in the jail system who cover that for me because they're there, and they provide on-the-ground reporting of the system. And one, his name is Robert Whipple, right near us in Sequatchie Valley, who has one letter to me about the ridiculous difficulty he is having in getting access to the law library, and a kind of a catch-22 conflict among the rules. And then Grenda Harmer in Wartburg at the Morgan County Correctional Complex, MCCX is the name. When you see that name, it looks like it's something out of a Roman legion, right? A report from a Roman legion, with its its Latin designation. But he says that the inmate from the Crips Brotherhood, a different kind of fellowship than that of the Finger, was moved, and that is after he complained about it, and he apparently had lost all means of administratively saying that this man should have an incompatible designation between himself and that man, which would have kept them separate administratively. That was not that designation was either, if it was there, it was ignored, or if he had applied for it, or if someone had applied for it on his behalf, it was being ignored, and that inmate was given open access to this whistleblowing Grenda Harmer. That's his name, Grenda Harmer. And I'm receiving more letters from him than I suggested I receive from him. The most recent one is a complaint. I must say that what I like about Grenda Harmer is he knows how to use semicolons, and he also a very literate man. He's a Christian. I think he was converted in the prisons in which he has been enslaved. His number is 88710. And he's learning some of the fine arts of dealing with the state. And as I'm trying to encourage him to think in terms of procedure. And he has in one of his documents, he's giving legal notice of your subordinates, he says, of unlawful acts. Now, this is how this kind of work has to be done. You have to give notice. Failure or refusal to act in good faith and correct their unlawful conduct denies you. He's telling Sean Phillips, the warden, qualified immunity under Anderson v. Creighton, 483 U.S. 635, and then he gives the page number of this citation. That's a 1989 case where the Supreme Court said the standard is whether a reasonable person could have believed under the circumstances that his actions were, quote, unlawful in light of clearly established law. And then, so what he's doing is he's putting the warden on notice. Now, this is a very healthy labor. I must say it's a very healthy labor, and he styles this very neatly penned letter of which I have a copy. He styles it an administrative notice. Now, I've been suggesting that that administrative notice is a useful tool, a help to those wielding state authority. I'm not sure Grenda Harmer is using this form correctly, though, in making a report of the argument, because an administrative notice doesn't make any arguments. It just lays down the law. And then it becomes the basis of other documents, other claims, and it becomes a basis of the argument later when one sues under I think it's Title 45 of the U.S. Code. One sues for oppression and demands multi-millions in dollars in punitive damage against the state or against the individual, all of whom or both of whom were notified administratively of the standard of activity. That is to say, the statute and the policies which are written pursuant to the statute. And what that does is, notice officials they love to be notified of what the rules are, because they sometimes are busy and they don't remember. But in this document, which I think is kind of a hybrid administrative notice, he brings in the facts. And here's a bit of, if you haven't had breakfast, let me just tell you about the prison breakfast in Tennessee. And you'll ask yourself, number one, who is the man who wrote this detailed discussion about the food shortages in the Core Civic prison run, right? Core Civic run prison unit in Morgan County. This is dated November 10, 2017, and it's to Sean Phillips, the warden of this fine establishment with its very fine for-profit staff. There are 3 facts alleged. Actually, there are 5 facts alleged and detailed citations. Now, I'm not gonna trouble you with the citations necessarily, unless it seems like it would be helpful to you. But I want you to have a sense of what it's like to be a slave of the state. And the problem with it being, slavery. There are problems with slavery, I think, especially if a person's a Christian and he's a slave owned by another Christian. Well, there should be liberation, right? A Christian can't own another one. And there are injunctions in the Holy Scripture, the Holy Writ about that. But the children of Israel could own pagans indefinitely, right? And keep them in bondage through debt and servitude. That's allowed, but not among God's people, right? So if a man is enslaved, he's bought as a slave, he's converted, has to be freed within I think it's within 7 years. He can't be kept more than that, or probably even sooner. And that's because the whole idea of Christianity is about liberation, right? It's all about liberation. And maybe we can ask ourselves about the liberation from the dining hall of a Core Civic prison. Core Civic, by the way, runs the Silverdale workhouse here in Hamilton County. Fact number 1: food served to PC inmates served cold daily. And he signs Tennessee Department of Correction policy number 506.16 at 0.6b, D, and 1. Okay, it requires that food be hot, and then number in part 2, 116.05, 6C10A states, quote, temperatures of food served to staff and inmates shall be 100 degrees Fahrenheit, 140 degrees Fahrenheit or above. And that would be meat. Okay, that this is how detailed my correspondent is. I like correspondents who give me details like that, because I think that's very not. It doesn't just suggest that he has to scruple about the facts, but also about the governing authority in the state hellhole. Fact number 2: food served on dirty trays. Okay, policy number 116.05, part 6, Roman numeral 6, and then E requires trays be cleaned, but I get several trays weekly with food from previous meal on it. Okay. Fact number 3: PC inmates denied food or drink or given smaller portions. TDOC policies are here. We have the citation again. You can make note of this. 506.16 Roman numeral 6 B3D and I got to get this, number 116.03 Roman numeral 6K requires we be given same portion size as general population. Here are examples of non-compliance. So he's got small letters, okay, 1, 2, 3, 4 in small letters. Okay, so here we have the portion size declaimed. And if Grenda Harmer is a Christian, he no doubt thanks God and blesses the food he gets. Because he's a whistleblower, I think he's kept in isolation from others, and I'm not sure in solitary confinement. I'm not sure if that's the case, how that he eats or doesn't eat with the general population. And so there's a meal comes through the slat in the door. Okay, that's how it comes in. For example, as he's let's take the most recent example here. That's October 25. 2 ounces of goulash, parentheses, largest slot from main course was supposed to get 8 ounces. 1 ice cream scoop of rice, comma, lettuce, about 1 ounce, comma, 2 tortillas, comma, no salad dressing, parentheses, was supposed to get half an ounce, close parentheses. 1 fruit, oat bar, 2 inches by 2 inches by 1/8 inch, and that was at supper. So that's the last of the points on fact 3. And just one more, fact number 4, at Morgan County Correctional Complex in Wartburg, Tennessee, in the state slave system, which has, I think, 20 to 30,000 inmates, and there are 70,000 people under the jurisdiction of the Department of Corrections. Where did this come from? And I asked people who claim to be Christians, does your system of belief have something to do with correcting that, or did your neglect of those rules in your holy scriptures contribute to the rising up of this gigantic factory system of servitude? Fact number 4, population inmate kitchen workers not wearing beard or hair restraints. Okay, what's next in your fare? What's next? TDOC policy number 116.505, Roman numeral 6B3D, and policy 116.11, Roman numeral 6C, requires, it should be require beard/hair restraints be worn. I'm sending hair samples I got off my tray. So this is a very appetizing point of fact. And he cites Tennessee Code annotated 414104B, mandates, he says to the warden, that you, quote, examine into the affairs of Morgan County Correctional Complex daily to assure that proper standards are maintained. Again, that's a quote. That you have failed or refused to do. On February 27, 1990, you signed an oath. Notice how he has the date where the warden signed the oath. This man has done his work, right? He's done his homework. You signed an oath to, quote, fully, faithfully, impartially, and diligently perform your duties as warden and to, quote, execute the laws and regulations prescribed, unquote, for TDOC and MCCX under Title 41.1103A. Failure/refusal to correct the above violations can subject you to criminal prosecution under 41.1103C and 39. David Tulis, 800-8949, 800-8949. And he has some requests. There are 4 of them, which he has the numerals surrounded each by an open parentheses and a closed parentheses. Thank you in advance, he says, for complying with your oath, Grenda Harmer. And this is so the news is good that Grenda Ray Harmer, whose name figures somewhere in the Faulkner novel I haven't read yet. There are several, and is my correspondent in the penal system. There's a story you need to pay attention to, and that is about the aerosol treatment that we're having here in Hamilton County. I was just stepping away from the mic for a second to pull out my red calendar. My calendar, just so you know, is one I always have with me, and I get people in the studio for an interview, and I get them on this calendar. So I get their name and maybe their business and their email and their phone number, and I get them in for an interview. And we've had 4 days thus far in November of sky striping, and that was Monday the 6th, Tuesday the 7th, and Friday, this last Friday, and Saturday. There seems to be a slacking off of the program in which coal fly ash is dispersed into the troposphere or the stratosphere. It depends. In October, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We had 6 days in October. That's half the rate of before. So I'm not sure to explain how it is that the program is scaling back. But Dane Wigington, who runs geoengineeringwatch.org, has spent some money, scarce money among conservationists and environmentalists, to get out a press release. And I thought when I first saw it a few days ago of reposting it at Nooganomics.com, since that is a topic I cover there, and I'm trying to decide how to allocate my time. And in light of my count of days, and I've already reported at Nooganomics.com, our chief sponsor here on the David Tulis show, that the rate of treatment is down. And you say, well, what are you talking about? Well, we don't have condensation trails over Chattanooga and these bizarre clouds that form when there is this activity. We have what's called solar radiation management, and it could be termed the plasmification of the skies. There are some reviewers. There are actually books out that discuss you might say the military purpose, the G5 military purpose in having a sky which is conductive, and that is conductive for electrical pulses and uses, broad uses that let very important and very good people maintain control of the environment. Is there planetary warming? Well, probably not, but I think it's possible to suppose that this system of dimming the clouds by layering the sky with dust particles that Dane says are thick with aluminum, barium, and strontium, that these clouds and these plasmic systems serve weather modification purposes and private gain, because there is a weather futures market in Chicago where the futures markets began back in the 80s, when finally the American economy got off of the honest money system and went purely into fiat. The headline that Wigington is bringing out is the connection between geoengineering or aerosol engineering and fires. He says the extremely destructive and deadly firestorms in California were not simply an act of nature or a result of global warming. Extensive and compelling evidence implicates climate intervention programs, also known as geoengineering, as a major factor in the firestorm catastrophes. And he mentions in his second paragraph of this statement, it's a press release, that legal action has been filed against the Department of Commerce by the Legal Alliance to Stop Geoengineering. And the Department of Commerce is the overseeing agency for the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, which is refusing to respond to open records requests, or should I say FOIA Act's Freedom of Information Act requests on climate engineering. That organization is under a ban, a press ban. He says the LASG group is part of an anti-geoengineering collaborative effort organized by Minnesota Natural Health Coalition and geoengineeringwatch.org. Again, the website is geoengineeringwatch.org. Geoengineering is the science term that applies to processes of climate intervention on a global scale. Climate engineering programs, he says, are completely disrupting natural weather and climate cycles all over the world, destroying the ozone layer and reducing the overall hydrological cycle, which in turn fuels record drought and firestorms. That is something that has been recorded. The reduction of the power of the sun to cause evaporation. The evaporation rate, I think, since the 1960s, according to an Israeli study reported on by the BBC, is down about 50%. So there's a remarkable loss of power by the sun to make water evaporate. So we have this. We have evidences like that are again attributable to the creation of vast oceans of cloud cover that have a military purpose by being conductive, because these systems contain a great deal of metal in them. And I've got a call. This is David Tulis. And caller, thanks for calling. You're on the air live. What's on your mind, please? Feel free to change the subject. Well, the press release goes on to say that the stated purpose of geoengineering and solar radiation management is to slow down or temporarily mitigate unfolding runaway greenhouse scenario of the Earth. And he says that this is triggering what he calls the Venus syndrome. And there are evidences in these opening holes in the former Soviet Union and other places, giant holes opening up and gas coming out from underneath, a process, he says, that's caused by the spraying, the continuing spraying for decades now of these aerosol particulates. This is David Tulis, no friend of coal fly ash, here at 92.7 FM.
Traffic, news, and information. Nooga Radio. Digital FM 95.9.